The date is January 2026. This is the breaking news headline dominating every defense report globally. Ukraine is winning the war with algorithms.
And that's not all. Rheinmetall is supplying weapon systems for the Bundeswehr's new RCH155 howitzers. Big news.
Huge news. And a quick reminder, subscribe to Defense Reports. It's your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex.
And I'm Aria.
Welcome to the latest Deep Dive by Defense Report, where we give you a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of what's really happening in global defense, military tech, and grand strategy.
And if that headline sounds like something out of science fiction, it really shouldn't. The sources we've been digging into show we are witnessing a fundamental, and I mean a deeply consequential, divergence in modern warfare.
A divergence.
Yeah. It's a clash between one military structure, Ukraine's, that's relying on systemic, high-speed data processing for surgical precision, and another, Russia's, that's just drowning in conventional losses, structural decay, and, an internal chaos that's proving impossible to manage.
And that structural divergence is the absolute core of our analysis today. We are going to cover exactly how Ukraine is using AI-based decision support systems like Griselda and Kropiva to literally run circles around Russian forces.
And we'll get into why the conventional Russian military structure is crumbling under these massive tank losses and some catastrophic design flaws.
And we'll connect it all to what a major new European hardware acquisition, the highly mobile RCH155 howitzer, means for the future defense of the whole continent.
So our mission is pretty clear. We're going to analyze the latest OSINT reports that focus on how Ukrainian digital innovation and European defense procurement are gaining this critical momentum. It's a real qualitative edge.
And we're contrasting that momentum with Russia's deep struggle to maintain effective conventional forces and its ongoing, let's be blunt, systemic failure to adhere to basic international norms. So let's unpack the data.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's jump straight into the biggest game changer right now, the algorithmic advantage. When people talk about AI in war, they usually picture Terminators.
Right, autonomous weapon systems, or AWS, the literal killer robots.
Exactly. But the revolution we're tracking is happening one step earlier, inside the brain of the operation. The AI decision support systems, the AI DSS.
We really need to shift our focus here. These AI DSS platforms, they're best described as epistemic tools.
Epistemic tools.
Tools for generating knowledge and accelerating understanding. They don't pull the trigger, but they enhance the speed and efficiency of human military decision-making to a degree that's, well, it's almost unimaginable. They radically compress the kill chain.
And Ukraine has just rapidly become the world's proving ground for these ideas. They've successfully integrated commercial, Western, and their own domestic systems. So, for instance, we're seeing systems like Palantir's meta-constellation software being used to detect adversary positions and inform, high-level decisions with satellite imagery and just vast amounts of synthesized data.
But the real operational depth, I think, comes from their own native, rapidly developed systems. You've got Kropiva, which is a key piece of software automating command and control, coordinating tactical ops, and calculating fire solutions for artillery.
So it fundamentally changes how ground forces locate and target their adversaries.
With incredible accuracy and speed, yes.
Then you have the logistics layer with systems like GIS ARTA. This one has been famously described as having Uber-style technology.
That's a great analogy.
It really is. Think about it. Instead of a commander manually requesting fire support, the system assigns missions to artillery units based on optimized factors like range, availability, readiness, the target's value.
It makes logistics feel like hailing a rideshare, but for high-precision, rapid-fire artillery.
It's all about creating this holistic, integrated digital picture. But the platform that truly crystallizes this asymmetry we're talking about is Griselda.
Griselda. This is the one. It's an AI-based system developed under Ukraine's Brave One initiative, and it processes intelligence from every available source. Satellites, drones, social networks, and this is critical hacked enemy databases.
And here's the metric that should shock anyone following military strategy. Griselda takes only 28 seconds to acquire a confirmed target and pass that decisive firing information to the armed forces.
28 seconds.
28. So why is that time compression so mathematically and operationally decisive?
Because it fundamentally breaks the enemy's O-Day loop.
The observe, orient, decide, act cycle.
Exactly. In conventional warfare, that cycle takes minutes, maybe even tens of minutes. If you are a Russian commander, you're used to having a cushion of safety once your position is detected. But at 28 seconds, you barely have time to acknowledge the detection, let alone orient your forces or decide on a countermeasure.
It's tactical instant kill.
It guarantees an overwhelming operational tempo for Ukraine. It's a game changer.
That sounds incredibly powerful, but,
Hmm.
as we've discussed before, these AI DSS platforms are still just tools. Even in the hands of the defenders, there have to be complex ethical and practical issues when you hand this much speed over to a machine.
Precisely. And while we celebrate Ukraine's digital success, we have to acknowledge the wider global debate that even their allies are struggling with. I mean, if we look at U.S. systems like Project Maven, which automates target recognition in drone footage.
Or Israeli systems like Gospel and Lavendel, which automate target identification.
Right. With all of them, concerns remain about human accountability and the risks of automation bias.
Automation bias, that's key. That's the psychological tendency for a human operator to just accept the machine's conclusion, especially when it's delivered with such confidence and speed.
Exactly. And there's a classic, frankly terrifying example of how algorithmic error can go wrong.
Oh.
The NSA's Skynet system. It was designed to track phone metadata and patterns to identify potential terrorist couriers. And in one famous case, the system wrongly identified Ahmad Mufak Zaidan, who is the chief of Al Jazeera's Islamabad office, as a potential al-Qaeda courier. It gave him a super high suspicious score.
And the reason was chillingly simple, wasn't it?
It was his job. As a journalist, his travel and call patterns meeting sources in dangerous areas reporting the news, it matched the algorithmic criteria for suspicious behavior.
It just illustrates the danger so perfectly. If you feed a system bad data, or if its parameters are too narrow, the result is faulty targeting, no matter how fast it is.
The human critical element has to remain paramount. Absolutely. The success of Griselda, Kropiva, all of them, depends not just on the software, but on the quality of the Ukrainian personnel interpreting the findings and making that final, accountable human decision.
And that high-speed, precision digital warfare creates such a stark contrast with Russia's failure to achieve any parity in this domain, what the sources are calling the Russian cyberflop.
It is a sharp contrast. I mean, despite all the initial expectations that the GRU and FSB cyber operations would achieve massive strategic success, crippling infrastructure, disrupting communications, they've largely failed to gain any significant advantage within the kinetic war zone.
And the analysis suggests this failure isn't technical, but structural, organizational.
Yes. It's assessed with high confidence that there's a total lack of coordination between their kinetic attacks and their cyber operations. I mean, we are talking about Russian missiles physically destroying the very networks that their own cyber units were trying to infiltrate.
Wow.
Plus, you've got the internal paralyzing competition between the different intelligence agencies. It has just completely hobbled their effectiveness.
So because they failed at that crucial digital confrontation, they were forced back onto their legacy strength.
Exactly. They see information confrontation as all-encompassing, sure, but in practice, the conflict remains a heavy metal war favoring conventional and often tragically ineffective means over coordinated high-tech action. They just haven't achieved the integration.
And that takes us perfectly to Section 2. What happens when a military relies on heavy metal? But that heavy metal is fundamentally flawed and is now being targeted by a sub-30-second AI-driven kill chain.
Yeah, it paints a very grim picture for the Russian ground forces. The AI-enabled targeting from Ukraine is just mercilessly exposing and exacerbating these deep-seated structural flaws in the Russian military, particularly within their armor units.
Russia has effectively lost the capacity to conduct large-scale, armor-reliant maneuver warfare.
They have. It's due to the sheer volume of catastrophic tank losses.
And here's where we really get into the grim details of Soviet military engineering. We're talking about the fundamental design of tanks like the T-64 and its later models, T-72, T-80, which are the backbone of their ground forces.
The structural problem is the carousel autoloader. It's situated directly under the turret, and it holds the tank's entire stock of ammunition.
So when that armor is penetrated, even by a relatively small drone-dropped munition or a javelin,
that autoloader detonates catastrophically.
And that's what results in the infamous turret toss. The kinetic force is so massive, it just blows the turret clean off the chassis.
Correct. But the true tragedy and the military consequence is the personnel loss. This fundamental design flaw immediately dooms the crew. That's 3 highly trained personnel gone, leading to these excessively high, irreplaceable casualties every single time a tank is lost. It's a structural drain on their combat effectiveness.
We can see clear statistical proof of this structural collapse in the operational history. The tank losses, which are predominantly these vulnerable T-72 variants, they spiked massively during the big Russian defeats.
The retreat from Kyiv, Kherson, Kharkiv.
Right. And then again during the renewed, costly offensives toward Vuhledar and Bakhmut. The vulnerability of the design means every successful strike is a triple blow: the tank, the ammunition, and the crew.
And compounding that equipment problem is the illusory nature of their strategic reserves. When Western analysts first assessed Russia's capabilities, there were all these reports of thousands of tanks in storage.
But those reserves proved to be largely notional, didn't they? Or just completely obsolete.
Yeah, we've all seen the pictures of ancient T-62M tanks being pulled out of mothballs, often in just terrible operating condition.
And their military-industrial complex just can't restore the losses fast enough. Not the sophisticated main battle tanks. They're trading quality for quantity, but the quantity isn't even high quality.
And the personnel crisis is just as severe, maybe worse. Because unlike a tank, you can't restore a trained junior officer in a factory. The high personnel losses, especially experienced platoon and company commanders, they just can't be replaced quickly.
The training pipeline for mobilized personnel has been, well, gutted.
We have these horrifying reports that mobilized tank crewmen are being sent to the front with as little as 2 to 5 days of training.
Or being deployed without any gunnery practice whatsoever.
They're essentially just warm bodies piloting a piece of expensive, flawed machinery.
And sending untrained crew into a high-intensity combat zone is not just ethically irresponsible, it's a recipe for disaster.
It doesn't improve effectiveness. It ensures that valuable equipment is wasted and unit cohesion, the ability of soldiers to fight together under fire, is absolutely crushed. This shortage of trained personnel is a structural crisis that ensures their offensives remain these cripplingly costly failures.
That structural crisis, the lack of training, the desperation, the high casualties, it connects directly to the third and most disturbing section of our analysis: the systemic failure of military culture that enables the atrocities we keep witnessing.
The documents analyzed show very clearly how violations of international humanitarian law are systemic, not just isolated to a few rogue actors. The targeting of civilian infrastructure using missiles and bombs in places like Kupiansk and Kupiansk-Vezlovye, it demonstrates a deliberate strategy of terror.
And the source material traces the cultural roots of this institutional brutality deep within the Russian military tradition itself. Specifically, that brutal hazing culture known as China.
We need to spend a moment on this because its operational consequence is just vast. Dedovshchina, or the rule of the grandfathers, is a horrifying tradition that establishes a brutal hierarchy based on length of service. It involves endemic physical and psychological abuse, often amounting to torture.
Inflicted by senior conscripts onto new recruits.
Yes. This cycle of abuse creates a culture of trauma. The victimized young conscript endures this brutality, and then when they become a grandfather, they in turn exert that power over the next batch of recruits. The sources note that the tactics of torture used against Ukrainians, electric shocks, severe beatings, are direct analogs to historical hazing tactics used internally within the Russian armed forces.
So this cycle normalizes brutality.
It normalizes brutality, it fractures any sense of unit ethics, and it combines with a lack of education on humanitarian law and state propaganda that systematically dehumanizes Ukrainians. It creates an environment where systematic war crimes are not only possible, but structurally enabled. The historical precedents from places like Chechnya are, sadly, very clear.
Meanwhile, the information war machine just churns on to justify this behavior.
Russia's information confrontation is this all-encompassing, constant campaign designed to manage domestic dissent and sway global opinion.
And the systematic nature of the disinformation is clear in the data. One analysis showed that a significant percentage, 20.28% of the content spreaders were classified as bots.
And the narratives they push are consistently focused on two main goals: justifying the invasion with fictional claims, the bioweapons and neo-Nazis talking points we all know.
And, crucially, trying to sway non-Western countries, We're seeing targeted campaigns aimed at influencing nations like South Africa, India, Brazil, Mexico. They're desperately trying to fracture the global consensus against their actions.
It's an integrated approach where the failure of their conventional forces and their systemic ethical breaches are justified through just constant high-volume lies. But the facts on the ground, accelerated by Ukraine's algorithmic advantage, just keep undermining their claims.
Which brings us full circle, back to the headline, connecting that algorithmic advantage to the decisive physical support from Europe. This is where high-tech precision meets survivable, world-class hardware.
Exactly. The systems we discussed, Griselda's 28-second targeting, they demand equally modern, high-mobility hardware that's capable of escaping the counter-battery fire that inevitably follows detection.
And Europe is answering that call decisively.
The news broke on January 8, 2026. Germany confirmed the purchase of the KNDS RCH155 wheeled howitzers for the Bundeswehr. And this follows the UK's acquisition of new mobile artillery just before Christmas. It's a massive acceleration in European defense procurement.
And the RCH155 isn't just another piece of artillery, is it? It represents the convergence of mobility, survivability, and firepower that's tailored for this modern, transparent battlefield.
It's got an unmanned remote howitzer module on the highly durable and maneuverable 8x8 Boxer chassis.
The key capability here is speed and automation. It's fully automated and, critically, capable of firing while moving or at a very short halt. This shoot-and-scoot capability is taken to the extreme with fire on the move.
Which drastically enhances the crew's survivability. On a battlefield saturated with high-res satellite surveillance and cheap recon drones, if you're stationary for too long, you die. The RCH-155's ability to move, fire 8 rounds a minute from its L-52 cannon, and immediately displace. All while integrating data fed by an AI system like Griselda. That is the definition of modern, survivable, responsive artillery.
In terms of sheer power, we're talking about a long-range capability up to 70 kilometers with advanced ammo like Volcano or Excalibur.
The mobility ensures survival, and the range ensures operational depth. And this hardware acquisition is perfectly timed. We know Ukrainian personnel began training on modern artillery back in December 2025. These precise mobile systems are the ideal complement to the ultra-fast, accurate targeting data from their AI.
It closes the loop.
It closes the loop. High mobility and precision to escape counter-battery fire while delivering precise algorithmic strikes.
So to summarize our deep dive today, Ukraine has achieved a critical digital acceleration through these AI decision support systems, giving them a decisive sub-30-second edge in the kill chain.
And this digital leap is directly contrasting with Russia's deepening crisis. Its conventional tank forces are crippled by structural design flaws and massive personnel shortages.
All stemming from inadequate training and a brutal systemic military culture. And in response, Europe is reinforcing its defense with cutting-edge, highly mobile, networked artillery like the RCH-155.
Ensuring the hardware can integrate seamlessly with that algorithmic advantage. The future of conflict is moving away from brute force and toward integrated speed and precision.
So here's where it gets really interesting, and here's our final thought for you to mull over.
Given this increasing reliance on cheap, autonomous, and AI-enabled systems, think drones, think AI DSS, that are proving to be decisive force multipliers. Should global defense analysts now prioritize the cost-benefit analysis of AI integration over simply comparing conventional military budgets or raw troop numbers?
Especially when billions spent on vulnerable, conventional armor is now being defeated by these comparatively cheap systems.
That's something for you to think about in this new era of defense.
You've been listening to Defense Report. I'm Alex.
And I'm Aurea. Thank you for joining us for this crucial deep dive.
And don't forget to subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.